Okay, so let's dive in. We're looking at something really interesting today, a kind of cultural paradox, you might say. It's about the Ilonggo community and their emotional life. Because, well, if you know Ilonggos, you might have heard sort of conflicting things. On one side, there's this really common, very endearing reputation, right? That they're incredibly sweet. Malambing is the word often used.
Affectionate, sentimental, very relational.
Exactly, a culture that really seems to value warmth and connection.
But then, yeah, there's this other label, one that gets thrown around, sometimes, maybe a bit critically.
Right.
Pikon, which means, well, easily offended, maybe quick to take things to heart, sensitive.
Highly sensitive, yeah.
And those two things, like super sweet and super sensitive, it seems that they just don't fit together. A total contradiction.
They really do.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, really, to get past these labels and figure out what's underneath. Is there like a single core idea that links them?
And we think there is.
We think there is. It's about this concept of deep emotional investment. The Ilonggo word is Balatyagon.
Balatyagon. Okay, so that's the key term for us today.
It's the one.
We're trying to move beyond just saying sweet or touchy and understand the actual, mechanism.
Yeah, the why behind it.
And the core idea driving this, the one we found in the source material, is that this high emotional investment, this balatyagon, is precisely what makes the reaction, the sensitivity, just as intense.
Exactly. The depth of one explains the strength of the other.
Okay, so let's start with the positive side first, the Malambing trait.
Sure.
When people talk about Ilonggos being sweet, what does that actually mean in practice? We're talking about being really caring, right? Focusing on harmony.
Yeah, investing openly in relationships, putting yourself out there, emotionally speaking. It's a beautiful way to interact, fundamentally.
And that takes us straight to Balatyagon, doesn't it?
It does. Balatyagon, it translates roughly as feeling or sentiment, but it's deeper than that, I think. It implies this internal wellspring of emotion.
Like your sense of self is really tied up in your relationship.
Exactly. And your commitments is profound.
Okay.
So think about it to be genuinely malambing, really affectionate and sentimental. You kind of have to open yourself up quite a bit.
Makes sense. Vulnerability.
Right. That capacity for warmth requires a significant emotional investment in people, in the integrity of how you interact with them.
So it's high stakes.
Very high stakes. And that vulnerability, that depth of feeling, that's the source of this deep balatyagon.
All right, so the sweetness comes from putting a lot on the line emotionally, a big investment.
Yeah.
But here's the pivot, right? This is where it gets tricky and where maybe people stop analyzing. If they're so invested in harmony and a deep feeling, why the Pikon label?
Uh-huh.
Because, let's be honest, sometimes being easily offended can just seem, immature, can it? Regardless of culture.
That's a fair question, and that's exactly why we need to reframe it. The sources we looked at really push back on seeing Pikon as just a flaw.
Okay, how so?
Well, instead of seeing it as an independent negative trait, think of it as a necessary consequence,
Yeah.
a protective response even.
Protecting the investment.
Exactly. If you put immense emotional energy, that deep balatyagon, into a relationship or an interaction, you almost have to have a strong mechanism to guard that investment. Otherwise, what's the point?
Okay. So the sensitivity is directly proportional to the initial sweetness or investment.
Precisely. The strength of the reaction tells you something about the depth of the feeling that was violated.
Right, because if the stakes are really high,
Because of that deep balatyagon.
then any violation, like a betrayal or an insult, it has to hit harder.
It has to. Imagine someone invests deeply, truly malambing, and then just shrugs off a major slight. It would almost invalidate the initial feeling, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would suggest it wasn't that deep after all.
Right. The strong reaction confirms the depth.
Okay, so what are the specific things that trigger this? What violates Balatyagon so profoundly that it leads to that Pikon response? The sources mentioned a few key things.
Yeah, they did.
First up was slander. Not just casual gossip, but attacks on reputation, on someone's identity in the community.
Right. That cuts deep anywhere. But maybe especially when social harmony is prized.
Then straightforward insults. Things that attack self-worth directly. Again, universal, but amplified here maybe.
Amplified by the depth of feeling involved, yeah.
And the third one seemed really significant, a broken promise.
Ah, yes. That one's critical.
Why is that one so telling?
Because a broken promise isn't just like an inconvenience or disappointment. It directly attacks the trust.
The foundation.
The very foundation that the whole Malambing interaction, the whole Balatyagon-based relationship was built on. It's a direct hit on the emotional investment itself.
Wow. So when someone reacts strongly, feels Pikon in that situation, they're not just being overly sensitive, they're actually signaling that the violation was huge because the initial emotional contract, the Balatyagon, was huge.
Exactly. The intensity of the reaction is a measure, confirming the intensity of the original feeling.
That really changes how you look at it.
It does. And that brings us to the really crucial reframing insight. We need to stop seeing Pikon as just this negative thing on its own.
And to see it instead as
the other side of the coin. The flip side of that profound sentimentality, that Malambing quality, it's the guardian, in a way.
the guardian of the emotional core.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating is how this ties into a bigger idea from anthropology, the concept of an honor culture.
Okay, tell me more about that connection.
Well, an honor culture is basically one where things like status, reputation, and significantly emotional commitments are really important and need to be visibly defended if they're threatened.
Right, you have to protect your honor.
Exactly. And in this context, the deep emotional investment finer, the Balatyagon, the Malambing interaction, is the honor that's being invested and valued.
Ah, I see.
So the Pikon reaction isn't just personal sensitivity, it's the cultural mechanism for defending that invested feeling, that social and emotional honor.
So if you encounter that sensitivity, you're actually seeing evidence of sincerity, of deep feeling being taken seriously.
That's a great way to put it. You're seeing a culture that doesn't treat its emotional contracts lightly. The investment is real, so the defense is real.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up for everyone listening. What we're saying is, the very things that make Ilonggos often seem so wonderfully affectionate, so willing to invest deeply, that Malambing side, are the exact same things that make them sensitive when that investment feels violated. Broken trust, insults, slander, these things hit hard because the initial connection was built so deeply.
They're inseparable. The capacity for deep connection is also the capacity to be deeply hurt when that connection is attacked. One implies the other.
Sweetness and sensitivity aren't opposites here.
Not at all. They're two expressions of the same core value. A profound investment in feeling in Balatyagon. If you value connection that much, you're going to feel its absence or its violation just as strongly.
That really shifts the perspective. It moves us away from judging.
Yeah, absolutely.
And towards understanding. Instead of asking, why so sensitive or why so Pikon, the better question might be,
wow, how deep must the underlying feeling, the Balatyagon, be for the reaction to be this strong?
right?
And that insight isn't just about understanding Ilonggo culture, is it? It prompts a question for all of us, really.
How so?
Well, think about your own life, your own relationships. Where are the emotional stakes highest for you?
Good question. The source material actually pushed us towards that kind of reflection.
Right.
It basically asked, if deep feeling is what makes the sweetest connections possible, what does that tell you about the emotional stakes in your most important relationships? Think about it. The people you feel most affectionate towards, the ones you're most vulnerable with, aren't they also the ones whose actions, a harsh word, a broken promise can hurt you the most?
Almost certainly, yeah.
So if that's true, then feeling hurt or offended in those situations isn't necessarily immaturity, it's actually confirmation.
Confirmation of the depth.
Yeah, it confirms how much you actually invested. It proves your own Balatyagon, or whatever you call that deep feeling, is real and significant.
That's the connection. You can't understand the defense, the hurt, the sensitivity, the Pikon response, without appreciating the depth of the investment that came first. The sensitivity validates the sincerity.
A powerful way to look at it.
Indeed.
And that's really the core insight from the source, Ang Ilonggo Indilang Suite, why we are Pikon and why it's a sign of a deep Balatyagon. Definitely gives you something to think about.
Absolutely. Until next time.